Hi everyone, Jaffe here, and welcome to part 2 of our tutorial on how to solve cryptic crosswords. In part 1, we looked at the structure of cryptic clues and some common wordplay elements that we would need. And in this part, we will be solving an actual crossword, which is on the screen right now. This one is called Politicians and Revolutionaries. I made it last month with the purpose of sort of showing all kinds of different wordplay in an actual crossword. So I have the grid open in a separate link in the top right corner here, and we have the clues on the left. And if you do want to try it yourself, the link to the puzzle is in the description, and I'm going to also put a link to part 1 in the description if you didn't see part 1. Maybe you want to check that out if you don't know how cryptic crosswords work yet. But for the rest of us, let's start with this puzzle. So a good place to start maybe is at the top left corner. So let's start with this one across here. Jokes for children. Now if you need this very short clue, and if ever you see a clue that's very short, especially if it's 2 words, it's almost always going to be a double definition, just because you have to split it somewhere, and if you split it in the middle, there's only one word left for the wordplay, and there's not many opportunities to have any wordplay with one word. So it's often going to be double definition. Now, that's also the case if there's just an obvious connector word in between, meaning is, and, or, for, things like that. For could be part of wordplay. It could be like the letters pro, and then children meaning something else. But here it is a double definition. So we need a word that means children and also means jokes. And kids means children, obviously. Now kids are not jokes, but kids is a synonym of jokes as a verb. So you're kidding, you're joking. Someone kids, someone jokes. So it's a synonym in that sense. Let's do this. I'll try to do this in an order that you might solve it. So using the letters we already have. So one down is here. I am contracted to follow the debut of Khloe Kardashian. Now, if we look at words that might be indicators here, well, anything that gives you sort of direction or ordering, that's very likely to be wordplay. So to follow something, to follow another thing. Something is after the other thing. And the debut here, debut is one of the many words that can mean the start of a word. So the starting letter of Chloe would be debut of Chloe. That would mean we break up this unit, pretty clear unit here, and we would have just Kardashian as the definition. So can you come up with a Kardashian that fits this? 3 letters starting with K. Well, I think we can. Kim. So that's K, debut of Chloe, the first letter of Chloe, and that is followed by something. I am contracted. Now, why is I am contracted im? Well, it's not like a written contract. This is supposed to be like a contraction, like shortening. So I am, a contraction for that is I'm, then apostrophe. So I'm follows K, we get Kim. Let's do 7 across. Where one might see Homer making Odyssey's ending shorter, for starters. Now here, if you look at the end, you see that for starters, well, starters are clearly starting letters, so that's very likely to be wordplay, which means we would be looking as the definition, something like where one might see, or where one might see Homer, or where one might see Homer making Odyssey. Now for starters, it has the S here, so you probably want to take more than one starting letter. So this E and S. But if we take a lot of starting letters, these four words would give us four letters. So M, O, E, S would give us four letters. And that would fit here. And now we only have to figure out why Moe's would be somewhere one might see Homer. Well, Moe's is a bar in The Simpsons, and that is somewhere that one might see Homer Simpson. And you can see that the Odyssey here, Homer and Odyssey, is just misdirection to make you think of another Homer and not Homer Simpson. But actually, to solve it, you need to read this as Homer Simpson. Also of note, Moe's is with an apostrophe. Sometimes you see those indicated as punctuation in these numbers, in these enumerations. So you might see 3'1". I don't use it, but some people use it like that. So let's see then, this 2 is the only one that we have letters for. So let's see. Dr. West from Hollywood brought up fantasy. So what's going to be the indicator here? Well, if you brought up something in a down clue, you are writing it up upside down. Just if something is brought up, it's written upwards. Doctor has a pretty common abbreviation that fits here. DR would fit here. So if we put DR here, and then we need to write something backwards, that means West from Hollywood. Well, Hollywood obviously refers to the film industry, and there is an actress named Mae West, and Mae backwards is EAM, and dream means fantasy, your dream job, your fantasy job. So that's how this works. And this brought up was operating on just the May, but there's nothing prevents it from just reversing the whole thing. There are a couple of options, and you just have to see which one fits, which one makes a real word that fits in the grid. So now we just have the M here, and we have the only word that we have some letters for is this long one. So let's try the long one. Female shooter arrived unprepared near Gulf State. Now this is 411 letters. It's not very long as a clue, and there aren't really all that many good indicators here. Near can mean positioning, like putting something next to the other. And in that purpose, it's sort of like a word that you can ignore, in the sense that they would be next to each other anyway, if there are no other indicators. So this is, in fact, a charades clue. So you have to find a word for arrived, a word for unprepared, put that near a word for Gulf State. And the definition would be female shooter. Well, Gulf State can only be so many things. It can be Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, probably less likely, right? Kuwait, Iran. Are we missing something? Yeah. Well, if you look at those options for a word meaning female shooter, one of them looks pretty good at the end, right? If you have Oman at the end, something woman might be a female shooter, right? So Oman looks like it could be here. Now, if you arrived, you came, and came fits here with the M. Once you figure out that, and you think, this is obviously going to be a W if this is Oman. So someone who shoots, who is female, well, that could be a camera woman, not as in shoots with a gun, but shoots photographs. And why is raw then unprepared? Well, if you have unprepared meat, for example, you have a raw meat. So that's came, arrived, unprepared, raw, Gulf State, Oman. And put those together, you get camera woman. Let's look at these short ones then. 10 down. Revolutionary Guevara. He's supporting Cuba's leader. Well, Guevara is a word that can only refer to one thing, right? It's going to be Che Guevara, and he was a revolutionary. So, and this is a three-letter answer. So could this be Che? We have a C at the end. So that would mean this all is wordplay. We have a couple of potential indicators here. Supporting in a down clue can mean supporting from below, so something is below the other thing. And the leader can mean the first letter of the lead letter of the word Cuba would be the C here. So C is supported by just this word he, plainly. You don't even have to pick a synonym for it. It's just the he. Supports the C and we get Che, Revolutionary Guevara. Now should we look at this 11 down next? Also a short word. Idiot to make sweater, perhaps in broadcast. Well, this is a clear as day indicator because this is the exact same indicator we saw in part 1 for a sound-alike clue, for a homophone. So if the indicator is at the end, then we're going to have the definition at the beginning. So idiot is going to be the definition. To make sweater, perhaps. So what this perhaps is doing, as we saw with maybe in part 1, it's a definition by example. So something that you might do to make a sweater, but not necessarily just a sweater, other things as well, that sounds the same as a word for idiot. And the word for the idiot has to start with an N. Well, the word for an idiot is knit, written like this, and that sounds the same as knit with a K, which can be done to make a sweater. You can knit a sweater. So that's the homophone of knit is knit. And which one should we pick next? How about this one with the M at the end? So 5 down. A Chinese politician who has published several books on the core of diplomatic doctrine. It's a very long clue for 5 letters. Note this A here, a Chinese politician. If we just had to put the name of a Chinese politician, you wouldn't necessarily see this A here. So this A is probably important. And here it's important because the A is just plainly in the answer. So A is this A here. Then we need a Chinese politician. And then whatever this is, the core is an indicator, which means the middle letter or letters of a word. So diplomatic is an even length word. It's a 10-letter word, so we are going to have 2 central letters, O and the M, 4 letters on each side. And that fits here, O and the M here. And now we only need to fill in the name of a Chinese politician. But in fact, this whole thing is a unit, Chinese politician who has published several books. And, well, if you had to come up with one Chinese politician, chances are you would come up with this one, she, who has published several books. So this, all of this part was just part of the Chinese politician. So basically, clue would work without it, but it wouldn't sound as good as a sentence. And axiom is a doctrine. So let's do, how about this 8? 8 across. Image of Yankee soldier very forcefully starting to evacuate from the east. Now from the east, if something is coming from the east, this is an across clue. The east is the right side of the map. So if something is from the east, it is in the opposite direction that we normally write. So that is a reversal indicator. Now if we have a reversal indicator at the end, that would mean that we need this image being part of the definition. Now we don't know whether we have sort of whether this reversal reverses the whole thing or just one part of it. Actually, let's do these first, and then we can actually sort of justify why it has to be passed in a certain way. So let's do 4 across first. So 3 across first. So 3 across. Key figures starting a religious service. They're often found in churches. Now, something is starting, the starting letter. So figures starting these words would be the letters that start these words, the A, R, and the S. Now, that would fit either here or here. But if you look at this, they're often found in churches. If that is the definition, we're going to need a plural because it's they. It's not it's on often found in churches, it's they're found in churches. So we're going to need a plural. And these ARS end with an S. So it could be that we need a 3-letter key and then ARS. Well, key can be several different things in 3 letters. If you look at your keyboard, you have Tab, Alt, Del, and End, at least. ESC also as keys for 3 letters. Well, if you are looking for something that is found in churches, altars can be found in churches, so Alt here. Now, let's do 6 down. Quiet and coy ultimately. And we have an S at the start. Well, ultimately is a clear as day indicator. It means the last letter or letters. Well, if we take the last letters of these, TDY, we would have 3 letters, but TDY means nothing. And also we would have no words left for the definition. So it's not going to be that. The other option is coy ultimately being Y. So we would have Y here then. Quiet can be, if you tell someone to be quiet, you say sh, quiet. So sh can mean quiet. Y is coy ultimately. But again, the same problem. We have no words left for the definition. And there is a way out. We discussed and lit clues, which are clues where the whole thing is the definition and the whole thing is wordplay. And you can get them, they're pretty tricky to spot. But for example, here when we figured out that this would make a word if we treated this entire thing as wordplay, then we would just have to justify why shy is quiet and coy ultimately. And indeed, if someone says you're quiet and coy, ultimately you are shy. So it does work. And you can sort of come at this at, from 2 different angles. Also, if you have a lot of letters in the grid and the clue read as sort of a plain sentence sounds like it could mean that word that fits in the grid, then it might also, you might start to look at how the wordplay works. So you might come at it from the definition angle as well. But here we figured out the wordplay first. So this was an and lit clue, and now we have this Y here. This is why I wanted to do it in this order. So here we didn't necessarily know how to pass this because this from the east could be reversing this or this or this. We don't know sort of what kinds of things this from the east is operating on, because it could be the whole thing or only a part of it. But now when we have the Y here, actually we have some indication of how this works, because Yankee here, we figured out what image is the definition. So Yankee is a word that can clue the letter Y, and that is in the international radio alphabet. You have Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Y is Yankee. So Yankee is at the end here. So that would indicate that we take Yankee something, 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 and we reverse the whole thing, leaving the Yankee last. So if we do that, let's look at what we would get. So we would then reverse this entire bit. Well, we have another couple of potential indicators here. Starting is a starting letter of evacuate. That's good. Starting to evacuate could be this E here. Evacuate can also be sort of sort of indicate removal of the middle letters. So if we evacuate this word starting, you would be left with just the extreme letters, the S and the G. And that's not actually an indicator we discussed in part one. We discussed removal of some part, but that's a sort of a special case of removal, just removing everything from the inside to evacuate something or empty out. Sometimes you see on vacation because it's been vacated, so which is pretty tricky as well because you don't think of on vacation meaning that. So SG backwards, that would be the start of the word being GS. It doesn't, there are no words starting with GS. So it's going to be the E, starting letter of evacuate, and that would be the first word, first letter then. So Yankee, Y, soldier, well, a soldier can be a GI. So we would have Y here, GI, and then very forcefully. Now, sometimes you see musical abbreviations used, which is P for like quietly, piano. You can see F for forte, meaning loud. And you can see FF for fortissimo, which means very loud, very forcefully. So very forcefully here clues FF. And the E from starting to evacuate is the remaining letter. And effigy is an image. Now this 4 down looks like we can do this. So wrap leg around female sibling to show the placement of 1, 10, and 15 down politically as well as here. So it turns out we cannot do this, and the reason is it refers to other clues. 1 down, 10 down, and 15 down. So we know this is Kim, we know this is chair, but we don't know what this is. And it's going to be important in solving this 4 down. So we're going to have to come back to 4 down once we've solved this. Now let's look at 9 down. Detained pilfering man close to southern parts of Chesterfield with a question mark. Now, question mark we talked about can mean that something needs to be something in the clue needs to be read in a non-standard way, or it can be a definition by example, as we discussed with we discussed in part one about the definition by example. So what kinds of indicators do we have here? Well, southern parts of, we are in a down clue, so a southern part of a word could be the end, or southern parts could be this L and the D. Close to could be near, as in we saw near, something is next to the other, but close can also be the closing letter, the end letter of the word southern. So also we have pilfering, something obviously in the clue it's an adjective, but it can be a verb meaning something is taking another thing, something is inside the other thing. So how this is going to work is there's an abbreviation for southern, and that is S. You might see in a compass N and S, and one letter abbreviations for the compass points. Southern can be abbreviated S, And these parts of Chesterfield is a plural, so that would mean S at the end is very likely, right? So if this is S, then southern, that is close to, that is next to something. And here, close to southern. Now man can be, it has a one letter abbreviation as well, and that is M. Um, so if we come up with a word meaning detain, so it would have to be 6 letters, that taking in M with the S at the start, and we would get something meaning parts of Chesterfield. Now Chesterfield is a place, actually several places. A Chesterfield can be a cigarette, and here Chesterfield is a sofa. A type of sofa is a Chesterfield. So it's probably the hardest clue here. So we need to find the word arrest for detain. Put an M inside, and you get armrests, which are part of a Chesterfield, parts of a Chesterfield sofa. So these types of clue are pretty hard, where you have to come up with a sort of long word, and like if you don't find this arrest, it's pretty hard to find the answer, especially with Chesterfield uh, potentially meaning so many things. Now the question mark, why the question mark is here is definition by example. Like an armrest could be part of something else. It doesn't have to be part of a Chesterfield sofa. So that's why the question mark is here. Okay, so we have some letters for these. We have this long answer, and then we have this 15 and this 18. Let's look at actually this 15, because we're going to have to solve 15 down before we can look at 4 down, because 4 down referred to this 15. So 15 across is here. Abuse extreme elements in legislature being in the majority. Now something being in something, that's a very clear indicator of putting something, a component inside the other. And extreme can be an indicator as well. Extreme elements in the word legislature are the extreme letters, the L and the E, the first and the last letter. So the extremes in legislature would be LE, and you would be putting them in a word for majority. And this would then be the definition, abuse. Well, if you put LE here, and the majority would be most, so to molest is to abuse as a verb, and that is the answer here. So now we have the M, the starting M for 15 down, so maybe we can solve it. Chairman's mother, the second in command. Well, second can be several things in crosswords. It can be the S, as in physics, 1 second, 1 S. It can be sec, just an abbreviation for second, SEC. It can be a mo, wait a second. Or it can be the second letter. The second in command would be this O here. So if the second in command is O, we would have M something O, meaning chairman. And I think we can figure out what that is. So mother would be Ma. Your Ma is your mother. And second in command is this O. And Mao definitely was a chairman. So now that we have Kim, Che, and Mao here, we can now start to look at 4 down, which is here. So wrap a leg around female sibling to show the placement of Kim, Che, and Mao politically as well as here. That's a lot of words. But if you see a word like here in a crossword, or a word like the clues or this puzzle, it might indicate that there's some kind of a theme going on. Here is just three answers, but it could be something that's everywhere in the puzzle. So we are looking for something. Um, Actually, this is two words, 4 and 4 letters. Some kind of placement of Kim, Che, and Mao politically. So this is the first word. Well, Kim, not Kardashian, but Kim as in the leader of North Korea. You would place him and Che and Mao in the left wing, wouldn't you? So how does that work? This that fits these letters that we have. And leg, if you wrap leg around something, that is actually just the letters L-E-G. L-E and G wrapped around something else. Now, female sibling sounds like sister or sis or something, but actually here female is just separate. This is this F here. It's an abbreviation for female. Like in a form you might have, uh, asking your gender, you might have F for female. And sibling, a twin is a sibling. So F twin inside leg, you get left wing. And that is, first of all, the placement of Kim, Che, and Mao politically. They are in the left wing, but also they are uh, left wing of this grid is filled with those answers. So that's why it's as well as here, sort of like a mini theme here. So now that we solved that, can we solve this long 12 across? Surroundings of newly ordered newly ordered vent broken by extreme athletes. We have extreme again, but extreme athletes doesn't quite work for AS because it would be extremes of, or athletes extremes with the apostrophe s, so it doesn't quite work grammatically. We do have another indicator, potential indicator here being newly ordered or just ordered. If you order something, you put it in a different order, so that could clue anagramming. So it could be newly, anagram the letters in newly. It could be vent, put in a new order. So this would be the indicator then, these two words. It could be anagram in this vent broken. But if you look at broken by, we talked in part one that insertion can be clued by something interrupting or something breaking up the other thing, dividing the other thing. So broken by extreme athletes. So you would put a word for extreme athletes inside an anagram of vent. So vent is newly ordered. And the answer would be surroundings. Now we have a T and E here, so we only need to place the V and the N from vent. And here we can put in a word for extreme athletes. And if you are an Ironman, you are an extreme athlete. People who participate in like long marathon, super marathons or things like that, Ironman. So those are extreme athletes. And then the anagram of vent is here, V-E-N-T anagrammed. And we get an environment, surroundings. How about 13 down? Revolutionary Ulyanov. And immediately you see, by the way, we had Revolutionary Guevara. We have all kinds of leftists here. And now we have Revolutionary Ulyanov. Could this be Lenin? 5 letters. Well, it turns out it can't, because this starts with V, so it's going to be something else. Loved getting hold of large Swedish company. Well, large can be abbreviated to L, and something getting hold of large very often means L being inside the other thing. Getting hold of is like something getting hold of. It looks like it's something has inside it another thing. Well, actually, these kinds of indicators can include two different things. It can be insertion or it can be hidden word. And here it's hidden word actually. Now, these aren't great fodder for a hidden word because with 5 letters, because the central word is more than 5 letters. So whichever way you take it, you would leave one word unused. But revolutionary, believe it or not, can mean backwards in a down clue. It's like it's revolved, it's turned. So it's going upwards. So revolutionary can mean reversal. So that would mean we have a reverse hidden here. And if you look closely, you see Volvo, which is a large Swedish company. So large was in fact here just part of the definition. It wasn't the letter L at all. So Volvo is the answer here. And the fact that this is exactly the same as Guevara was just misdirection, that you might think that this has something to do with Lenin, but in fact these were used for completely different purpose altogether. And you have to be ready for it in crosswords. Even though something looks very promising to be the same as another clue, it might be something completely different altogether. Let's look at this 18 across. So we have all the letters we're going to get for that one. Hobo is talking to house band member. Now talking can mean homophone, like referring to hearing something transmitted by talking. But actually here, this is a pretty tricky indicator to find, actually, because house band is just such a normal unit. But here the indicator is to house. Something houses, something contains inside it a band member. And if you look inside hobo is talking, we have oboist, which is a band member. So now we have only this corner to cover. 14 down. Ticket for oops, what did I do with the grid? Sorry. Yeah, so ticket for trendy cocktail dinners opening missing. Well, we have opening can mean opening letter, the first letter. We also have missing. Something is missing. That's a very clear indicator that you just take something out of the preceding part. So that would mean ticket is the definition here. And trendy cocktail, that would mean the dinner's opening, the D, the opening letter of dinner, is missing from trendy cocktail. And we would have a five-letter word meaning ticket. Well, if you notice, trendy is 6 letters and contains a D. So if we take out the D and we mix up the letters, we make a cocktail. Cocktail can mean anagramming the word or the preceding words. So if we take a cocktail of the letters in trendy and take out the D, we get entry, which is a type of ticket. Now, what about 16? Prevent swapping Toyota's front and parking in parking space. Okay, so swapping. In part 1 we mentioned swapping, but we didn't actually have an example clue for that. So here we do. We have a word for prevent, and we swap something and something else. So parking can be, it has a very common abbreviation with P. And Toyota's front is the front letter, the first letter of Toyota. So we swap P and T. And actually we have in here, so swap something in this word. And the prevent would then be the definition. So a parking space is a parking spot, somewhere you park your car. If you swap the T and the P, you get stop, which means prevent. So that's an example of letter swapping. Then we have, let's look at 17 down, last down clue. Plums regularly cut to find sign of infection. Well, regularly, if ever you see the word regularly in a crossword, it's often going to mean take every other letter. And here we have regularly cut, just meaning take out every other letter. Basically means the same thing. So here we have P-U-S, and pus is a sign of infection. So that is the answer here. That's a letter selection, selecting every second letter. So we have only one further clue to cover, and that is US president not starting to get supporting votes. Now, not starting means you take everything but the starting letter. So it's not starting, you just remove the starting letter from the word, meaning US president. And to get here is a connector. You can have these connectors to just telling you that when you do this to get the answer. And if you can come up with a US president where you can remove the first letter to get supporting votes, you might think of Hayes, Hayes, and in fact it shows us that we're correct. So I's are supporting votes, and that's Hayes without the first letter. So that was an entire crossword. I hope my explanations made sense. And these are a bit more like real clues than the very simple sort of example clues that we had in part one. These are still relatively simple. I tried to make them so that you could try this out sort of without any further experience, just with part one. And yeah, I hope it made sense. And the next cryptic crossword that we're going to look, it's going to look a bit different. It's going to be a hexagonal grid and some other differences as well. So that's going to be called Colorful Candy Cane Carousel, and that'll be the episode 2 of our puzzle series. So that will be coming up next, and I will see you then. Thanks.